Hello there, book friends, and welcome to my channel. My name is Megan, and today I am doing my February wrap-up. And they were pretty much all contemporaries because I have been in a contemporary mood lately. I've just been reading a ton of contemporary. They're so easy to get into and finish in like 2 days, and I just love it. So in total, I only read 6 books this month, which is kind of an average for me, but they were all contemporary, so they didn't take me very long. So I haven't spent like a ton of time reading this month because I just haven't been in the mood to read really long books lately. So it's just mostly been contemporaries. And the first book that I have on my list I don't have with me. It was one that I borrowed from my library, and that is Moxie. This book is a YA contemporary, and it takes place in a American high school where we have our main character, and I can't even remember her name because I don't have the book with me and I'm lazy looking things up. I really did enjoy this book. I gave it 5 stars because it was a lot of fun and it hit a lot of powerful points with me, I'd say, and I did not really have any issues with it. It was written well and the characters were highly engaging and interesting, and they all had their own problems and issues. The main plot of this book is it's a feminist movement book, and it deals with sexism and rape culture in schools and in societies, and kind of how it feels to be a woman and seeing the things that men get away with, and it's deemed okay because boys will be boys, but if a girl comes to school wearing a tank top, that's inappropriate, or her skirt is just 1 inch above her knee. Oh, call the police, that's not allowed, there's something so wrong with that. And it makes me, reading these kind of books makes me feel good about the fact that I actually went to a pretty decent high school where nothing like that ever happened. Another thing that was really weird for me was reading this book, and there was a security guard at the school, and I keep forgetting that in America your schools have security guards and some of your schools have metal detectors. It's such a weird thought for me, the idea of having a security guard at a high school, because it just makes it feel kind of like a prison. But back on track to the actual book that I'm supposed to be discussing, I really love the main character and that she decided to start this movement called Moxie. What she did is she put up posters in the girls' washroom saying, "Are you tired of boys harassing you and men getting away with things that are sexist and rude?" And then that movement just kind of spiraled, and it started with her, but it didn't end, but it kind of continued on with the rest of the girls in her school, and some of the other men came and joined in, and there was romance in this novel as well. And I just loved a lot of discussions that they had and the characters and how the story progressed. It was easy to read. It took me like I think a day or 2 to read this book, and I just overall had a great experience with it. There is some sexual assault in this book, so keep that in mind. The sexual assault is kept at a bit of a lighter note than some of the other novels, and that I think was my only real issue with this, is I wish they would have delved a little bit deeper into sexual assault and the repercussions on women after this has happened to you and what it feels like. They did a pretty good job. But I just wish they would have gone a little bit further into that, just a little bit more, and discussed it, because there's so much help needed for women after you experience something like that, and it's not an easy fix, it's not a quick fix at all. So that was my only real issue with the book, but that was just really minor. I would definitely recommend this book to pretty much everybody. You're looking for like a YA contemporary that deals with feminism and issues that are prevalent in our society today. Next book that I read this month was The Museum of Heartbreak by Meg Letter. I got this book for like $5 and I gave it about 3.5 to 4 stars because this book was fun, and the writing was really poetic, and it dealt with a lot of the issues that you experience as a teenager. I have Penelope and her best friend, and she has 2 best friends. She has a guy and her girl best friend who they have sleepovers with all the time, and there's this new boy Keats who moves into the area and really likes him, and she wants to start a relationship with him, and they end up having a relationship, and it's really interesting. I really enjoyed it. The writing was very poetic. It had a lot of the typical things you see in some contemporary novels, but I think that story was illustrated really well. The point that it was trying to make, I feel like it came across well. Penelope is trying to figure out what love is and who she loves and how to be in a relationship and what kind of a relationship she wants to be in and what makes a good relationship. It did have a few hard-hitting moments that made me feel really bad for some of the characters near the end. Something happens and it's pretty intense, and I felt really bad for our main character for one. But overall, this book was really well done, and I think it illustrated one of the points that we wanted to well, that friendships and relationships, they might not last forever, but that's okay. It's okay to have relationships and friendships and start them. And she's not thinking, oh, I'm going to stay with this person forever, we're going to be together forever. And she looks at it a little bit more realistically, I felt, so I really like that aspect of it. I kind of wish that we'd been given a little bit more on the ending, because I wanted to see what happened next, but it kind of wrapped it up in ways so you could kind of guess and figure it out on your own, which I liked. I just wanted a little bit more, just a little bit more, but overall this was a fun, enjoyable read that I would suggest anybody if you're looking for a high school contemporary YA read that features romance. And then the other book that I read this month that I don't have with me is Wires and Nerves Volume 2 Gone Rogue by Marissa Meyer. This is the second book in the Wires and Nerves graphic novel series that starts 1 year after the Lunar Chronicles ends, and I gave this one 4 stars because it was a lot of fun. I will say a few things that I liked about it. I really loved being able to see our characters again, and I love seeing Aiko be kind of kick-ass and going around and saving the day, and I love learning more about Kinney and his sister Teresa. I would definitely recommend this series if you are a fan of the Lunar Chronicles and you're interested to know more about it, because it does give you some fun moments. Now, a few things I didn't like about it. The art style is not my favorite art style. It wasn't bad. It didn't take away from the story. I just felt that it could have been a bit better. And also the writing was kind of a bit childish at times. It's not as serious as the Lunar Chronicles books, and the story was a little bit predictable. I could see a lot of what was going to happen, not everything, but I did kind of see, oh, this is okay, I could see where we were going here, and that was just a bit annoying. But overall, still 4 stars because I just loved seeing these characters so much and learning more about what they were doing, and just some parts of it just made me so happy, and I was fangirling all over the place. I was just going wild while reading some bits of this. It just made me so incredibly happy. Ugh. And then the next book I read that I don't have is the Doldrums, and I can't remember who wrote it. And this book I barely finished. I gave it 2 stars because I had to skim the last like 30 pages because I just did not care. You have 3 main characters. You have Archer, who's stuck in his house all the time, and then you have Oliver, who is his nerdy best friend, and you have Adette, who is a smart French girl who has just moved to the country, and they become friends. So it kind of gave me a Harry Potter, Hermione, Ron kind of vibe, and I was like, that's cool, but I want to see where we go from here. Are we going to go on an adventure and go figure out some things? And nothing really happened. Nothing interesting happened. The plot was really, really boring. I do love to read character-driven stories, but it's gotta have a good plot. The story has to move forward and keep going. Otherwise, I'm gonna get really, really bored. And I did get really bored. There were some good and funny moments in the book. There were a few funny moments that did have me laughing and thinking, oh, that was clever. I also loved the artwork. The artwork was pretty gorgeous for a children's novel. I really appreciate what they were doing with that. And it didn't take me too long to read this book, if you're wondering why I finished it if I really wasn't liking it. I wanted to like this book, and I wanted to see where we could go from here. The book kind of felt like one big lead up to the next book. It didn't stand on its own. So I really wish I had enjoyed it more, but sadly I didn't. I feel like as an adult, reading middle grade a lot of the time doesn't quite work for me anymore, and I felt like this book would be better for kids to read. I'm not going to be continuing with that series. Anyway, on to the next book that I read, which is The Sun Is Also a Star by Nicola Ewan. If you watched my last library haul, I just took this out from the library and I finished it really fast because it's like 350 pages, so it's not super long. But I gave this one 3 stars because the insta-love. The insta-love was just too much for me in this book. I am not a fan of insta-love and never have been, and this book, it just had way too much of that for me. So overall, it was a 3-star read. If you're interested in contemporary novels that do focus mainly on romance, then you can give this a shot. It's not terrible, it's just not great. There were a lot of good things about this book though, and I will say the diversity was great. We have Natasha and Daniel. Natasha is Jamaican, and she and her family moved to the States illegally, so they are legal immigrants and they are being deported back to Jamaica, and she has 1 day left and she's trying to stop the deportation from happening. And Daniel is a first-generation Korean American, and then we also have multiple point of views, not just Natasha and Daniel's point of views. We have some strangers that they encounter on their day. We get to see what's happening in their lives and like why they are the way they are, and it's interesting. And it did add more to the story, seeing other people's POVs. The writing was also rather beautiful. Daniel is a poet, so we got a lot of him being poetical and talking about love and fate and destiny and that kind of thing. And overall, if you're interested in that kind of stuff, it was a pretty good read. It was just, the insta-love was just too much for me, and everything just seemed to happen so fast. They fell in love, they got in an argument, and they were back together within like an hour, and it just didn't quite seem real. I did like the conclusion to the story though, and I'd say it's not a bad book if you're interested in this kind of thing, but those are just my opinions on it. So that's all about this book. The last book that I read that I loved is Far From the Tree by Robin Benway. This book I gave 5 stars to because, oh my gosh, it was so good. This book is about 3 teenagers, and you have Grace, Maya, and Joaquin. Can't even say Spanish names. But they weren't raised together. Grace and Maya were both adopted by 2 loving families, and Joaquin was the only one who didn't get adopted. He's been with foster families his whole life, so it deals with that issue. And we also have Grace, who is the first person we see, and Grace has just given birth to a baby. She had a teen pregnancy, so we're dealing with her feelings on that and the loss. Then she's decided to give up her baby for adoption, and because of that she wants to find her birth mother and learn her story. And then she finds out she has these 2 other siblings, and they get together, and it was just so powerful, and it just had so many good points to it. I had no issues with this story. I thought it was really great, and I would highly recommend it to people who watch This Is Us and love that TV show, because it has a lot of similar vibes from that. It focuses on families, and I love stories to do with families that deal with the issues and what it means to be a family, whether it's by blood, whether it's just someone that you've grown up with your whole life. And I just love this book, and all the characters were so well developed, and it just felt so real to me. I was almost crying at parts of this book, I'll admit, and the ending, it just wrapped up really beautifully, and we got to see some character development from all the characters and the 3 siblings when they first meet towards the end of the book, how they've grown together to become a family, and it was just really beautiful, and I would highly recommend it for anybody who is interested in a story like that. So that is all the books that I read for this month. It was not a gigantic reading month, and mostly contemporary. So there you go. That is all for this video. So thank you for watching. Give this video a like if you enjoyed it, and subscribe down to my channel if you want more bookish content from me. And that is all now, lovelies. Thank you so much for watching. Bye!